Okay, here's the setup we have for our engineering FSC 100 final project. So we've built our design using two sensors. We have a ultra range distance sensor, and we also have an RFID scanner. So the way it functions is you first scan the RFID scanner on the RFID plate, and then that activates the sensor to be read, so it will detect objects within a certain distance. Our wiring setup, we are running off of one Arduino board, and it's powered by 4 AA batteries, which generates 9 volts. And then off that Arduino board, everything is run through a breadboard, so that way we can have expanded storage. And then we have the motor controller on the back, which powers not only one DC motor, but the second DC motor we used for our pump. So the way our code is written is as follows. We have the first part of the code is a sample code that was taken for the RFID scanner. So with this code, it's just setting the pins on the Arduino board, 10 and 9. And as the code is written, pin mode 8 is the output, so that's connected to the trig on the ultra range sensor. And what that does is it allows for the sensor to be read as soon as the RFID is activated. And after the RFID is scanned, then the sensor will begin to read. So this is where our old code starts here. This is the original code to run the motors. So for the first motor, which turns the serial wheel here, which is connected to the motor controller on the front half, this is the code. So it's connected to the pins 4, 5, 2, and 3. So at the beginning, it says digital write 8, which means the sensor is off, so the sensor is not reading. But then after 2 microseconds, the sensor begins to read. So now it's looking for objects that are within 7 inches. We chose 7 inches because the sensors are finicky, and anything less or greater would not read. And the bowl is also larger, so it will pick up the bowl at any distance. And then it's checking in a loop. So the code operates, so it will run once. We didn't want it to run more than once because then it will dispense too much serial. So then we have here delay 1000. So the motor runs, the first motor that dispenses the serial runs for 1000 microseconds, high-low, another delay, high-low. So it runs in a loop, but it only runs once because you have to scan the RFID again for it to run a second time. And then we have our second piece of code here, which is digital write 2, 3, 2, 3, which was the pins for the second motor. And this runs for 2000 microseconds because we needed it to run a little longer since it took more time for the milk to be dispensed out. And then you see the comments here, that's where that code ends. And then the end of the code here is for the RFID scanner to reset to run again. We had some issues at the beginning because the code was running, but it would only run once, and then you had to upload the code again to Arduino. So at the end, we had to add an extra set of codes and encryptions here so that there's a buffer at the bottom half, so that way when the RFID was scanned a second time, that the code would run again. Because when you scan it the first time, the blue light turns off and then the sensor's activated. But the problem we were having was that the sensor would not activate again, the blue light would not turn back on, so we would have to reset and re-upload the code to Arduino. Some changes that we could make to this design to make it a little bit better and more functional is if we use 2 Arduino boards. Everything is fairly packed on the front one, or the first one we have here. The majority of our pins are being used. If we used 2 Arduinos, we would have been able to have an easier setup, and we could have put more output to one because the battery pack we have here, we could not connect in series to get more voltage being sent out to the motors. So if we used a second Arduino board, we wouldn't have been able to power another motor with more voltage. And then also another thing we could have done was use 2 motor controllers. With this motor controller, it's being used to the fullest potential. So there's about 1 volt loss when it is being put to the motors. So we are losing power, which we could have changed with that. Other than that, this is the complete setup of our FSC 100 coding and wiring.